Hello and welcome to Art Time with Flory. I am so happy that you're here joining me for some summer art classes. And I'm so excited to introduce to you a little bit of history on art and a few artists along the way. Now, today we're going to learn about the artist David Cox. We're also going to learn a little bit about where watercolors came from. And our art project for today is called Summer Sea Turtles. All right, kids, let's get started and learn a little bit about David Cox. All right, kids, let's dive in and learn about the artist David Cox. David Cox was a famous English landscape painter. Now, a landscape painter is an artist who paints natural sceneries like the oceans, like the mountains, desert, trees, flowers, fields of flowers. David Cox was an important part of the Impressionism movement. Now, that was a style of painting that came from France in the late 19th century. David Cox was a major figure in the golden era of watercolors. Now, he learned to paint very flowingly with watercolors, and he used very clear techniques to really bring out the light in his landscape paintings at certain times of the day. Now, in his art piece, Beach Scene Sunrise, you can see how he really uses his clear techniques to bring out the light to show how a morning sunrise at the beach would look like in his art piece. So now that you know a little bit about David Cox, let's move on and learn about the history and where watercolors came from. All right, kids, let's get started and learn about watercolors. Now, watercolors didn't come to the Western until the 1400s. Artists had to prepare and grind their own watercolor paints. They didn't have stores like Michael's or Hobby Lobby or an art supply store where they could just go in and pick up and choose their watercolor palettes and buy it and go home. No, they actually had to go through a long process to create their watercolors. So watercolors came directly from colormen clumps of clay that were cut into slab-like watercolors. So those watercolors were very, very, very hard. And oftentimes, the artist would have to break down those clumps, those watercolor clumps, into bits and usable bits, and then have to grind them down into water, and then they were able to paint. So imagine having to do that every single time you needed to add more paint, or if you ran out of paint, or if you needed to blend colors, or you needed to add more colors. It was a very long process. Thankfully, there was artist entrepreneurs who created and made ready, set watercolor palettes to go. So now that you've learned a little bit about watercolors and a little bit about the artist David Cox, let's go in and start our warm-up. All right, kids, before we begin, let's make sure we have everything for our warm-up. So what you will be needing is a painter's palette. You're going to need all of these colors that we will be incorporating in our summer sea turtle, which is yellow, white, gray, blue, aquamarine, brown, red, and orange. You're also going to need a water bottle or a cup of water and a towel. And if you don't have a towel, a paper towel is just fine. You're also going to need your 7x10 mixed media warm-up sketchbook. And we're gonna need our brushes. Now the brushes we like to use called Big Kids Choice. It's really great. All right, kids, we're going to have the list of materials on the screen. So once you see it, go ahead, put pause, get your materials, and I'll be here waiting for you. All right, kids, now that we have everything we need, let's jump right in. Now, I'm going to show you what each brush can do, and this is a really great warm-up for you to learn when you start doing your art. It's always good to start up with a warm-up, and it's important to know what your brushes can do. So we're going to start with our wash. It's actually number 3/4, and it's called the wash brush. And what we're going to do is we're going to dip it into some water, get it a little nice and wet, not too wet, so you want to lightly tap it on your water cup or your water bottle. Here we go. Now I'm just going to get a little bit more on the water because what I want to do is add some water to my little palette right here. I'm going to go ahead and add some water on the other empty spaces, so go ahead and feel free to do that. All right, so now that I've freed up space, I'm going to squeeze some of the water out. I'm going to dab a little bit of paint. You don't really need a lot. And just add it to my little water. And look, we just made watercolor right here. So I'm going to make sure that I take the entire paint off the brush so that it mixes in and blends well with the water. All right, so now that it's ready, I'm going to make sure that I dip my whole brush. Now we're going to place it on top, and you really want to just press it down because this is how we're going to be starting our warm-up for our summer sea turtle. Look at that beautiful line. Look at that. So as you can see, you got to flip it over to get more water. Press it down. Now what you want to do is go back, do the same thing. Now we're going to flip it over to the side and see how thin and thick the line makes. All right, so now that we're done with this brush, go ahead, rinse it off. If you want to do another design just to play with it, feel free. Now we're going to dry it on our towel or paper towel, and then we're going to put it aside. So now we're going to get our filbert brush. It's actually the same number, 3/4. And we're going to dip it in water, do the same thing, squeeze some water out. And this time, I'm going to use yellow. And I'm going to add it to this little bubbled water. And make sure I take off the paint so the water mixes well. All right, I think I'm ready. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to just press our brush down and glide it over, and then go back. So as you can see, this one gives you a nice fat line. Now we're going to flip it to the side. I'm going to slightly add some yellow, and then we're going to go over. I'm going to lift, over, lift. So you can do little fun designs like that with the filbert brush. I'm going to rinse it off and do the same process, dry. So now let's jump into our little round brush. This one actually is the number 10 brush. I know it's really small, but on your paintbrush packet it'll tell you. So we're going to dip it again, and you can actually do the tip of this one. And instead of a line, we're going to do some arches. We'll do one line and a little arch, just so that way you can see different shapes. So now what I'm going to do with this little water bubble that I have right here, I'm going to dip it on, get a little orange and blend it in. All right, so here we go. So one line. So as you can see, and I'm just doing the tip. So if I did everything, it gives you a different sort of line. So now let's dip it more and like draw an arch. And you could do a dot. Each brush can do a dot, and they all come out at different shapes in different ways. All right, so now that we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and rinse. Whoops, that flew out of my hand. Oh well, we'll pick it up later. So now what we're gonna do is go on to the next brush, do the same thing, dip. Now I'm gonna go ahead and mix some colors. So let's add some red to my orange. And that's become more of a orangey red, more of a red. All right, so now that I have a nice amount of watercolors, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna flatten it out. And this one's actually called the angular brush. And it goes over. Now I'm gonna flip it to the side. I'm gonna dip it and do a wavy line. Pretty neat, right? You know, she'll raise it up, tip. Pretty neat. So let's go ahead and rinse our angular brush and dry it out and place it down. So you have 2 more brushes to go. So I'm running out of space, so simply go ahead. And it's okay because these are water-based colors, so if it gets on your desk, that's all right. You can wipe it off later. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip my brush and I'm going to add blue into the aquamarine. Now I need a little bit more water, so I'm going to go ahead and dip my whole brush and add some water. There we go. So now we have like this really cool blue. So we're going to use the same page. So I'm going to go ahead and do a line. Look at that. Now I'm going to paint a circle. You could do a square or a triangle or a question mark. Beautiful. So let's rinse this off. And dry it out. So now our last little brush, I like this one because you can really use details. It's the number 1. It's also called the linear. And so we're just gonna dip it really quick. It doesn't need a lot because it's really small and tiny. And I'm gonna go ahead and just go for my yellow that I have here. And let's just see what it looks like when you really press flat onto it. Makes a nice line at the beginning and then it ends dry. So let's do some squiggly lines. Nice. You could do some dots. Some arches. Or your name. This is a good one to use if you're trying to write with paint. All right. Or with watercolors. So let's repeat the process, dry. And so now that we're done with our warm-up, let's jump in and get started with our art project, the summer sea turtle. All right, kids, let's get going. All right, kids, let's get started with our art project. But before we get started, let's go over the list of materials that you'll need to complete our summer sea turtle. So you need your paintbrushes. You're going to need the wash brush, and it's 3/4. You're going to need the oval wash, 3/4. And you're also going to need the round brush, and the number to this one is 6. And another round brush, but it's a little smaller. It's number 4. And you're also going to need the angular brush, which is number 1/4. It's a little one. And you're going to need the linear brush, number 1. You're also going to need a spatula to blend colors and a Sketch 2B pencil. If you have a regular pencil, that's fine. And I like to use painter's tape. You don't need to. I like to add borders, and it also helps keep my paper on the table without moving. You'll need a water bottle or a cup of water, and you'll need a spatula with all of these colors: aquamarine, blue, a little bit of black, not too much, gray, white, yellow, red, brown, and orange. All right, and make sure you have a towel, or a paper towel is fine as well. All right, kids, we're gonna give you the list of materials that you need on the screen. So go ahead, get ready, get yourself prepared, and I'll be here waiting for you. All right.
Life is beautiful.
All right, now that you have everything ready, let's begin. We're gonna start with grabbing our sketch pencil. Actually, I'm gonna show you how to use the painter's tape. Now remember, if you don't have it, that's quite all right. So what I like to do is kind of measure it and make sure that it overlaps. Tear a piece out. I need to move this out of the way just a little bit to make space. Here we go. Perfect. You want to make sure that you really press it down so the paint doesn't seep through. You can use scissors to cut if it's too hard for you to tear with your fingers. I find it to be a little bit easier for me. There we go. Now we're going to do the other two sides. Perfect. Almost there. This is the fun part? No. I would say this is now if you need a ruler to measure it, I do this often enough that I have an idea of where I want my borders to start and end. Okay, now that we're done with our tape, now we're going to grab our sketch pencil, 2B. Actually, I'm sorry, that was a 5B. Oops. Okay, ready? So we're gonna start off with the bottom of the shell. So we wanna figure out where the midline is at. So this is about the middle, right? So you can add a very light line, something visible that you can see, and we're gonna go a little bit over. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start there and kind of slope upward. So I'm gonna, see that? It's a nice slope. And then we're gonna kind of go downward. Now go ahead and stop. You have a nice, and look at your linear, make sure you have a nice uphill slope, not too high, but just enough. So once you get down here, we're gonna slope a little bit, go down straight, and then we're gonna create the neck of the turtle. And it's not gonna be too long because now we have to slope up to make the head, to draw the head. See that? And add a little point so you could lift your pencil. Now it's okay if there's two little lines, it's okay because we're gonna paint over it. So once we do that, we're gonna really make a linear straight. There we go. And now lift your pencil. Now we're gonna create the flipper. There we go. And now you're gonna lift your pencil again and you're going to, let's start as flipper here. You're gonna slope up and then go down. And now we are done. Whoop, actually we have one more thing to do. We're gonna sketch the eye. Okay, whoops, my hair's in the way. That happens sometimes. So it's gonna look like a raindrop. Like that. Now you can put your sketch pencil aside and we're gonna get ready to add the background, the watercolor. That's my favorite part. We're gonna do some water, a little bit of watercolor, and let's get started. So you're going to grab your brush, your 3/4 glaze. All right, ready? So dip your brush onto your water bottle and we're gonna add some water here. Grab your cup just to make it easier and add some water to an empty space. We're also gonna blend 2 blues. That'll be fun. So what I like to do is add water to my paper. Not too much, just a little. So it gets it nice and wet and ready when you add your paint. So you're gonna add it right here. There we go. Now what I'm gonna do is on the tip, just very little, not a lot, and add it to my water and blend it. Make sure you rub the paint on it, and now we can get started. So let's start our first. Beautiful. And we're gonna add layers to it. That's the beauty of watercolor, is that you can add layers to your artwork. So that you see that our aquamarine is fading, so all you have to do is just dip your brush a little bit and paint over. And if you notice when I'm painting with the brush, I'm pressing down. So it gives a nice crisp look. So now that I've added some aquamarine, and it's okay if your watercolor paint kind of overlaps your turtle, because we're going to be painting over it. All right, so now what I'm going to do is add some blue and mix it in with my aquamarine. So we'll get a nice little sea blue. I think I want to add some more water, so I'm going to grab my little bottled water and I'm going to add more water because I'm running low. All right, now that I mix, I want to add a little bit more aquamarine. Kind of blend in the colors and make it look really cool. All right, now I have some paint on my brush and that's quite all right. And let's do it again. Same thing. Beautiful. Now make sure that you are flattening your paintbrush. See how I'm doing that? It's going to be smooth sailing for this sea turtle. All right, look at that beautiful beach blue ocean sea water. Makes me want to go to the beach. Okay, so see how I'm overlapping and how it's getting lighter? We do want it to light. We don't want it to get too dark. We're going to add another blue. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit more blue here to my water bubble here. And then I'm going to darken the top part of my ocean so it looks deep. There we go. This is so soothing for me. It's so relaxing. How are you guys doing? I hope you're having fun and getting excited about your creation you're gonna make. All right, so let's add a little bit more, make it darker, and then bring it down, letting it fade. So you can press it down, and then towards the end, you can just use the tip and slide it. Use the tip and slide it down. Use the tip and slide it down. There we go. See that? The tip or slide it down. And if you notice, when you're using the tip, it's really pulling the water away. and taking it to the other side. When you have, sometimes we get excited and we add too much water, so all you have to do is bring your brush up straight and use the tip and just pull it out. It's like a broom, pulling out the water. There you go. That's it. So I'm gonna lightly lighten it up. And I love my beach water. Now, if you want to make it dark at the top, all you have to do is the same thing. Tip up. Beautiful. All right, so now what we can do is rinse our brush. Make sure that you get the paint out because you don't want the paint to harden your brush because it'll ruin your brush. Now we put it on our towel and dry it up. So we're gonna put this brush away. I won't be using that brush anymore. So now we're gonna move on to the sand. But before we move on to the sand and paint it, we need to blend some colors. So right now we have brown and we have white. So I wanna make the sand a little tan, so I'm actually going to use brown and white to make tan. So go ahead, grab some of white and add it on a little empty area and mix your colors. And we're also gonna lighten this little tan later on for our sea turtle. Okay, so this is a really nice color. I like the way it looks. So once I'm done mixing it, I'm gonna go ahead, place it down, grab my brush, dip my brush in a little bit of water, just the tip, not the whole thing. You really don't need the whole thing just yet. All right, and I'm gonna squeeze the water out and I'm going to just grab a little bit of paint, not too much. And then we're gonna overlap it with the blue. So you see how light it can get, and it's okay if you overlap the paint over the fin. Because like I said, we're gonna be using tan. We're gonna lighten up that brown color later on. So go ahead, dip your brush in the water and slide it down so it spreads out smoothly. See that? Perfect. There we go. Now you can pull it out. So make sure we get the ends. There we go. Now I need to add a little, oh, there we go. So I'm pulling out the color. And that's really what you have to do. We're gonna do the same thing to this part right here. That's gonna be part of the sand. So we're gonna dip our brush again, add just a tiny bit of paint, nothing much, and do the same thing. And once again, you can overlap. Beautiful. Your turtle is coming along, kids. This is great. So now I'm flattening my brush. Notice how I'm flattening my brush? Beautiful. Okay. Once we have this part down, we're doing like rapid brush strokes. Here we go. Beautiful. Once we're done with this, we're going to rinse our brush. And now we're going to move on to the sea turtle's shell. That's my favorite part. We're going to blend some colors there. We're going to be using orange. We'll add some red and a little bit of yellow. We're going to just have fun with that. And even a little bit of brown. And we're going to add texture to it. All right, so let's get our wet brush, grab some orange, and now we're going to paint over. So for this one, we're not going to use too much water here. We're just going to use the paint acrylic, okay? So look, don't worry about the blue noticing here, because once it dries up, by the time we get back, we'll be adding more paint to it. So it's all about layers. Okay, here we go. Don't be stingy with your orange. Get a lot. Perfect. Fill that shell, and don't worry, we're going to add details to define this beautiful sea turtle shell, right? I love sea turtles. All right, here we go. Beautiful. So we're not gonna add orange down here. You're gonna leave some skin open, right? You're gonna leave it empty. So you do like a diagonal line. Perfect. So I want to make sure that every part of my sea turtle is covered in orange. And don't worry about our pencil showing up. It won't. As our paper dries up and we add more colors and outline it, so see it's already getting darker. That won't be a problem. There we go, slide it down a bit, slide it down. And making sure I leave a little space between. There we go. Feel how nice. Oh, I missed a little spot there. All right. So once we're done with this, we're gonna set our, actually we're gonna dip our brush and we're going to rinse it out because now we're gonna use tan and we're gonna blend it and lighten it up. Did you see how that color changed? It's now like this yellow, mustardy, dirty yellow water now. That's a fun part of rinsing out your paintbrushes. You get to see what color it turns into. So now it's no longer nice and blue. It's yellow, mustardy, dirty water. Okay, so now we're gonna get our spatula. We're gonna get some white acrylic paint. We're gonna add it to our already mixed tan and we're gonna lighten it up. And I need it to be a little bit lighter, so I'm gonna grab some more white and add it to our tan. And look, it's getting lighter. Exactly what I need. Okay. A little bit more, I'm not quite done with it. And blend, blend, blend. Mix, mix, mix. Whenever you want to lighten a color, all you got to do is add white. And it really lightens things up for you. Okay, so that's the color I want to see. That's the lightness that I want. So I'm going to put the remainder of the paint onto that. Kind of clean off my spatula, put it aside. And now we're going to grab that same brush and we're going to dip our paintbrush and we're going to paint over. There we go, the flipper. So remember how I told you don't worry about the lines and don't worry about painting over the lines. It's okay because look, you can't even see it anymore. You can't see the sand. And if it overlaps on your seashell, that's quite all right because we're gonna add details towards the end. We're gonna overlap it with colors, so don't worry. All right, so I'm gonna make sure I'm adding my base. And I'm adding my base because I want my colors to stand out because we're gonna be adding some gray to his flippers, but it just brings it out and it balances out the colors. All right, kiddos, how are we doing? So just turn it to the side. All right, I think that's good. So let me add a little more. Now it doesn't look perfect because remember, this is just the beginning. So we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing for the neck. Now right here, I'm not gonna make it too, perfect because like I said before, I'm gonna add details to it later on. All right, so we're gonna leave that blank for right now. And I already have like a nice base. And I'm gonna switch to a smaller brush. So now we're gonna go ahead and rinse our brush. And then we're gonna put it aside because we're not gonna need it anytime soon. All right, that's clean enough. Put it on my paper towel. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my number 6 round brush and add some tan, off-white, and now I can actually overlap a little better. Okay, here we go. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect yet. There we go. All right, perfect. So now that we're done with that, we're gonna rinse this brush. We're gonna use it, so we're gonna put it back here. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is we're going to actually grab the smaller rounder brush, the number 4, and we're going to overlap our lines with the paint orange and kind of trace over it. So go ahead, dip your brush into the orange and start overlapping. We're adding that little detail. There we go. All right, kids, how's it going for you? I hope it's going beautifully. So we'll add another layer once it dries up a little bit more. So now what we're gonna do is kind of refine the shape of the turtle. So we're gonna add a little shape, bring it down, pull down the paint. Pull down your brush. See how I'm flattening it? If you flatten it down, it gives you a nice little line. There we go. If you run out of paint, sometimes all you have to do is just flip your brush, because sometimes on the other side it has extra paint, so you can always do that. So see how that is flattening out, and we're tracing over the line. We're good here. All right, so now we're gonna get to the fun part, and we're gonna mix our colors. So you're gonna get some orange and red, mix it together. Here we go. So here on the side, I'm getting some red and orange. I wanted to give me like a little, so here we're gonna go a little crazy, okay? You're gonna do really rapid brush strokes, fast, and go messy. This is where you don't have to be perfect, and you just go nuts. Cool. So see if that I'm going one way, turn it around and do the opposite. So instead of going this way, you can go up and down. And the reason we're doing this is because we're adding texture to the shell. Because sea turtles have cool textures to their shells. They're not all perfectly smooth. And as they age, they have adventures, right? So it's like a badge of honor for them. All right, so we're gonna throw in some brown. I know, just the tip, that's it, not a lot. And blend in. Trust me, when we add the lines to our shell, you'll see how amazing it looks. And now we're gonna add a little bit of tan. Yes. See these jagged edges? There we go. Now get a little bit more red, add a little orange here, and get a little brown, mix it. Have fun with it. Mix these colors and play with it. I want you guys to play with your colors. You know, get comfortable. And remember, it doesn't have to look like mine. If you want yours to be just orange, go for it. If you want it to be just brown, do it. It's your art piece, not mine. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna add more. So I'm feeling like I'm missed this area, so let's add a little bit of texture there. And add a little brown. Pretty cool, right? Are you guys loving the fast brush strokes you're using on this little brush? You can do it with any brush. All you have to do is practice. Practice doing it for your warm-ups. Anytime you start a project, just warm up. And say, ooh, I want to try that brush stroke Flora used last time. Let's see what I can do with it, right? Yes. All right, so now what I want to do is add ridges to the end of my turtle. And then I'll go back and add some more layers of like brown and red and yellow. So here we go. Do you see that? I'm adding ridges to the end of the turtle, so it stands out. And this part, I actually want it smoothed out. So if your brush starts getting a little dry, I would only recommend doing a tiny, tiny dip on the tip of the brush and then grab some more paint so it isn't too watery, because you don't want it too watery. All right, there we go. Perfect. So now it looks like my turtle has a ridge. Now, don't worry about this orange part. If you've gone out of line, we'll paint over it. So here we go, and I'll teach you how. I'm defining my ridge. Beautiful. I'm really happy with this. So now I'm going to go back and do the same thing. I am going to add more streaks and add other directions to it. And notice how I'm just holding it and just flicking my middle finger and my thumb. They're doing all the work. My wrist isn't even moving. Right? So let's get some more little orangey red. Let's fill it in. Fill it in right here. Make it look good. Make it look fabulous. Fabuloso. All right, here we go. Now I'm defining it a little bit more. And if you notice, my water is pretty much dry. So if you wanted to add a little bit of more blue later, you definitely can do it because it's pretty much dry. That's the great thing about art mixed media paper. It can do watercolors, you can use it for acrylics, even oil-based paints. All right. Now I want to wet the tip and kind of blend the colors right here so it smooths out so it doesn't look like it's just rough. Perfect. Okay, now I'm gonna add a little bit more brown. I feel like it needs a little bit more edgy to it. Make it a little bit more. So see now that I moved my wrist upward and see how it looks? 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Cha-cha-cha. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I am liking the way it's turning out. So I wanted to give it a little bit more streaks. There we go. Let's add some little streaks here. And we are almost done with our shell. All right, almost there. You'll know. If you're wondering, well, how do I know? How do I know, Miss Flory? How do I know when I'm done? Well, when you feel it. If you love how it looks and you're happy and you're satisfied, that's when you know, okay? Sometimes you might take longer at an art piece and that's okay. And that's quite all right. It's taken me months to finish one art piece before because I would take my time and I would say, okay, I think it's ready, but it's missing something. What is it missing? I don't know. And then I'd think about it. All right, so I love the way my shell looks. I'm gonna finish right there. So now we're going to rinse our little brush and we're gonna move on to the next step, which is the flippers. All right, so for the flippers, we're gonna get our yellow brush again and then a smaller brush. We'll probably use the round 6. So I'm gonna push this little brush aside. I'm not sure if I'm gonna use it again. So I'm gonna grab my yellow brush and I'm going to use the color gray. So my brush is wet from being used, but I still want it a tiny bit wet. So I'm just gonna wet the tip of the brush, just the tip. All right, so we're gonna grab some gray and start with the flipper. So here we go. And we're probably gonna add 2 layers, maybe. So what I need to do is I need to add some white because I really want my gray to be lighter. Because in this area it's gonna be really dark gray. So we just add a little white and it already has a tan, so it kind of gives it a nice lighter gray look to it, like a, what's that color that I'm trying to remember? I guess you could say it's an off gray. It's not an elephant gray. Silver gray, yeah. All right, so I'm liking the way my gray looks. And we're gonna finish the rest. We're gonna add a little bit of gray, a little bit of white. Go ahead and blend it in. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can just make sure that the entire flip is gray. And you just dot it at the end right here. Don't go all the way down. Okay. So let's make sure that you have all the sides. This side doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to paint over dark gray over it, and we're going to use a different paintbrush. So now I'm really liking the way this looks. So I want to darken it just a tad bit, and I'll add a tiny bit of white, just a tiny bit, and go over this side of the flipper, the left side. So I'm pulling down the colors and it's smoothing out, and as you can see it has darkened just a shade darker, which is what I'm looking for. I want to add a little bit more gray, a little white, but add a little more gray. So I already have a nice light gray, and so it's getting a little bit darker. It's all about layering, kiddos. All right. Get a little dark gray here and pull down the paint. We're going to pull down the paint. Now there's certain parts of the turtles where we're going crazy, like the seashell, but this one is just going down smoothly. Okay. And so we can add a little bit of gray here too. And you could do it just like this because it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm adding texture to the neck because we're going to add some little wrinkles to his little neck. All right. And then we can add a little bit gray up here. Just get it started. You can just tap it. Just tap because we're going to add gray to him later. All right. So now that we're done, I like the way my flipper looks. We're going to move on. Okay, we're going to rinse our brush and make our water even dirtier looking. It's like yellow dirt. Actually, this kind of looks like the color ochre. All right. Once we rinse it out, we're going to put our paintbrush and dry it off. So I'm gonna put it to the side because I don't need to use it right now. So the next step is we're going to add a little bit more details to the shell. So now what I want you to do is we're gonna go ahead, go back to our number 4 round brush. Go ahead, get it a tiny bit wet. I'm gonna lightly dot it, and we're gonna go back and add just the top of the shell and really define the outlines. And then we're gonna add the triangles, the shapes to make it look like a sea turtle. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, grab some blue, get a tiny little bit of red, blend it in, mix it together so I get a nice little orange red. All right, here we go. And I'm going to make sure that I just use the tip, okay? Not the whole entire brush. Just want the tip. See how I'm doing that? Pulling the color using the tip. Very slowly. Take your time. There is no rush. Take your time. All right. Beautiful. All right, now I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'm going to go ahead and add some orange and red again. Mix it with a little tiny bit of brown. And I'm going to define the bottom, the ridge to the bottom of my shell. And if you notice, I'm kind of flattening and lifting. Go ahead and try that. Flat, lift, flat, lift. There we go. And now the ridge of our turtle is really starting to stand out. So once we're done with this, we're gonna go ahead and rinse this brush, add some orange to our ochre looking water. All right, not rinse it off, but dry it off. And now we're gonna add details. So now we're gonna get a smaller brush. We're gonna get our angular 1/4 brush, okay? And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab some white paint and we're actually gonna add it to our already light tan color and make it a little bit lighter. So once we've made it lighter, go ahead, hold your palette down and just take off the paint. It's okay if you paint your palette, you're gonna rinse it off later. All right, so now what we're gonna do is you really wanna use the edges of your paint, not the sides, just the bottom pointy part. So we're gonna add lines to our turtle shell now. So here we go. So what you wanna do is, I want you to explore what shape you want your seashell turtle, or not seashell, but your turtle shell to look like. So you don't have to copy the way I do it. You can do it your own way, okay? This is your art piece. So if you wanna go nuts, kiddo, do it. All right, here we go. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna add a line here. So you see how I started out thick and it's go slow. You don't have to go fast. All right, see that? Beautiful. And to give you a guidance, I got too much. All right, so what I'm also gonna do is now I'm gonna outline very slowly the ridge so I don't go past it. And if it's thick, that's okay. You can always go back. So remember, go slowly. Take your time. All right. So that way, I don't go past this ridge line. All right. Once we're done with that, I'm going to go ahead and end it right there. Now remember, you don't have to do it like mine. You could do it the way you want. So here we go. There's my next line. My next next line. Look how awesome it's looking. I'm loving it. So now you get to see, whoops, I got way too much. I got a little too excited, kids, because I love paint. Okay, here we go. Beautiful. I'm really loving how my turtle is looking. We gotta make sure that it connects. We wanna make sure that the lines connect. And now what I'm gonna do, I wanna add a line here. I think it needs one more line. What do you think? I think so too. Okay. Voila, I am done with my sea turtle. Now if you wanna add extra lines, go ahead. That's quite all right. Art's supposed to be fun. So now I'm done with my lines. Now I'm going to rinse this little tiny brush. I gotta shake it because it's so small. It has a lot of brush. I put a lot of paint. Sometimes the paint doesn't come off when it's smaller. And you can rinse it again and then dry it off. Much better. So I'm gonna put this paint brush aside. And now we're gonna start working on the turtle's head. So we're going to use our number 6 round brush, and we're gonna start using gray. So we're gonna do the same thing that we did for our flipper. We're gonna combine white, and there's a little tan, it's fine. And we're gonna add a little area right here. You can find a little tiny space and you can blend the colors if you want, just to help you. So I'm swirling my white gray and it's gotten lighter and I want it a little bit darker. So I'm blending my colors right here. All right, perfect. That's the color I want. So now what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna start at the tip right here and shape my brush. Shape down the head of this little turtle with my paintbrush and kind of make the neck stand out a little bit more. So here we go. Get a little bit more gray. And define it a little bit more. All right. And as you can see, it's starting to get more gray looking, and that's what we're looking for. We want to make it gray. There we go. I want to make my turtle heads a little bit bigger. So I'm going to grab some more gray and add it to my already blended gray and white. And there we go. I'm forming it. Beautiful. Perfect. There we go. Now see this area right here, we're going to leave it light. We're not going to add gray. So leave it just the way it is and go ahead and kind of do a little dab because we want to add texture. So dab is just jotting it down. See, tap, 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 dab, dab, dab. All right. And don't worry, we're going to add details. We're going to refine the face of our turtle. All right, I am very happy with the way it looks. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add some dark gray and finish up our fins. Okay, so we'll let the head of the turtle dry and we'll focus on the flippers. So right here at the bottom, let's define it a little bit more. Let's make that line and leave it there. We're going to blend it in with some tan and slide it down, so bear with me. All right. So now what we're going to do is add arches. And they're big, so go ahead, make them big arches. That's my first arch, second, third. If you add 4, that's fine. And fill them in with gray. And fill in your arches. All right. So once we're done with our beautiful dark gray arches, we're gonna do the fun part. We're gonna add details. We're gonna add triangles, squares, semicircle shapes to our fins to make it look like a real turtle fin. All right, we're gonna go ahead and rinse this off. Put it to the side for right now, and we're gonna grab our #1 linear brush. Okay, so we're actually going to dip into our already blended tan, and just the tip. And I love this part because you get to like do your own design. So now what you're going to do is, here's the end of the skin. So you're going to start at the edges and you're going to, there we go, add like a triangle. You want to make sure that all your lines are connected. So see how I'm doing this? It doesn't have to be like mine. This is just an example. Kind of like the turtle shell, but much smaller and tinier. So go for it. But just make sure that you hold your brush up, not flat, up, so you are able to use the point of the brush. So here we go. See how I'm making my own lines? And so some are going to be triangular, some are going to be square, some just different shapes like that. See that? And you're going to do that all the way across. Leave this little tiny area because we're going to add some freckles. So remember the tip. This part takes the longest because you have to be very tedious and detailed. All right, kiddos. Now, if at any time you feel like you need a break, go ahead and take a break. But if you are so focused and enjoying, continue on. So after we're done with all our lines, we're going to add black dots, or actually the dark gray dots, in the middle. That doesn't take too long. So these edges are going to get smaller, so you can make small little triangles or rectangular or square shapes. So if you notice, it's getting tinier. That's what we want, because it's getting closer to the belly of the turtle. All right, kids, how's it going? I'm having fun here. I can't wait to see the final piece. And this is great because if you like turtles, you'll now know how to make a sea turtle in the ocean. Pretty awesome, huh? Okay. All right, almost there. I'm almost done. And they can get smaller. All right. So now that I'm done with my lines, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just actually going to put my brush into the towel and just pull it out. Because now we're just going to dip it into the dark gray and we're going to add the dots. Ready, set, go! All right. Perfect dot right there. Dot. So go for the dark gray and put a dot on every tiny little square. Every tiny square, it's a lot. Yeah, it is. But you know what? It's so worth it. It's important to have integrity in every art piece that you make or anything that you do. You want to be proud. Always want to do your best. All right. Look how great his flippers look. I love it. Almost there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Should have started counting to see how many little shapes I have to put dots in, right? All right. I know sometimes we want to paint really fast so we can get to the ending of it so we can see what the final product looks like, right? Well, we're almost there, kids. Oop, I missed a little one right there. That was really tiny. Ooh, there's a tinier one here. Whoop. Oh, let's see. Let's look if we have any missing ones. Right there. Oh, I almost missed this one. Almost missed that one. All right, so I feel like I have, oh, nope. All right, now if you miss one, that's okay. You can always go back and add dots. So right here at the end, we're gonna add a little bit of dots, like little just staccato, little dab. Kind of give his little skin a little rough edge. Perfect. Okay. So now we're going to finish his belly. So we're going to go ahead and rinse the paintbrush, take some of the paint off, and we're going to mix and blend a little tan, and we're going to add it right here. And add a little more tan. And we're going to use our little paintbrush, and we're going to flatten it and drag it across. And cover the sketch. And then you're going to fill in the belly. Perfect. We're going to get a little gray and blend it in here. Tiny little dark gray and blend it in. So it's nice, a smooth blending transition. Perfect. See how it blends nicely? It's a nice smooth transition. There we go. All right, nicely done, kids. Okay, now I'm very happy with the way it looks. We're gonna add a little texture here. Now we're done with gray on the flippers. Now I'm cleaning it off, and now we're gonna get started on the turtle's head. But before we get started, let's have fun with the neck. So we're gonna add some little tan, and then you're going to just, with the tip, just flick it up and down, okay? And keep it within the neck, because we're gonna give him, that's right, wrinkles. And then we're gonna dip a little brown, just on the tip, and flick it up and down. Up and down, kind of like rapid brush painting. Here we go. Get a little more brown, a little tan. We're getting there, kids. Look at that. All right, we're gonna do the same thing again. When do we end? When I like the way it looks. So you decide. I'll always say this, it's your art piece, you do what you want with it. All right. Perfect. All right, here we go. Let's add a little bit of gray now. So it's a nice scratchy blend. Perfect. Now, as my paint starts drying up, I want to keep going because I want to add streaks. So now that I have the right color blend that I feel comfortable with, I'm going to add a tiny bit of white, just the tip, and just add a little bit of streak so it stands out just a bit. Here we go. See that? And then go upward. All right, so I'm gonna take a break on the neck and then we're gonna move on to his little head. Now, before we start adding lines, because we're going to add lines, we're going to add a little bit of orange, just a tiny bit on the top. Kind of gives him a cool look with a little bit of tan. And it'll look really cool once we add the lines to the turtle's head. Add a little bit of the light blended gray. I'm using the whole brush and the tip at the same time. So right now we're just adding the tip, defining it. See that? I'm gonna add a little bit of orange right here, make it a little bit brighter, just a little bit. All right, so now I'm happy with the way my turtle looks, but I think I want to add a little bit more gray, kind of blend it in a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so once we're done with that, we'll let it dry a bit. And I want to define the bottom of the mouth of the turtle, and we're going to use tan, so I'm rinsing it off because I don't want gray on it just yet. So I want a little tan. And there we go. It looked like he had like an overbite. I want to have a little bit overbite, not extreme. Here we go. Whoa, I didn't catch that. All right. Let's add the bottom. I'm defining his mouth. And then I'm painting over my sketch line because I don't want that showing. There we go. So we want to paint over the sketch line. Beautiful. Smooth it out. I'm going to lighten it with a little bit more. I'm going to add a little white because I want to lighten it up. There we go. See? Go ahead, pull down the color, pull down the lightness, and then go ahead and add streaks. Perfect. Ooh, we got a wrinkly neck. Yes. You know how the turtle bobs his head back and forth? He hides his little head in his shell, and then he sticks it out when he wants to say hello. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm liking the way the neck looks. So now what we're gonna do is add the lines to the turtle. So I'm gonna rinse it off a little bit. All right, we're gonna do the same thing we did to the flipper to the head. And you could do however many shapes you want. So I'm gonna start here. Okay, actually, let's start here. Do a triangle, see that? And then we're gonna add gray dots to it just like his flipper. And we're gonna almost there, kids. How's it coming along? We're adding geometric shapes to his head because turtles are awesome and smart. Now I'm leaving space around the eyes because there's a few things we're gonna do. All right. Now I'm done with my geometric shapes to my turtle's head. And now what I want to do is I want to add a little gray and really define the top part. Really define his nose. Let's get the little bit of mixed gray. There we go. Lighten it up a bit. And then just with the tip, just do a little gray. We're gonna add it to his mouth. Now we're gonna work on the eyes. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get some dark gray and fill the inside of the eye. Kind of round it out. Oh my goodness, she's starting to look more like a turtle. Look at that, kiddos. Dark gray. Beautiful. Now we're gonna get the tip and see this little black here? Just the tip. Fill in the rest. Fill in the rest in black. All right, we're not quite done with the eye. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add white, or like the light white and tan. So get your white, and if there's mixed tan, that's quite all right. Now what we're gonna do, I'm gonna take some off. So you take your time. This is a very important part of the turtle's eye. So we're gonna go around his, you're gonna trace around his eye, and it can be a nice thick line. Now hopefully you can see this. There we go. We're gonna do the same thing, grab a little, and just with the tip, go slowly. There we go. We have our turtle's eye. Beautiful. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna tap a little bit, and I'm gonna add some highlights. And just lightly tap it. Doesn't have to be perfect. And just add a little gray, mix here, and smooth it out. See how the tip? See how I'm smoothing it out? Very carefully. Take your time, kids. This is how you practice. Smoothing out little parts and little details that are important to your art piece, and you pull down the color. And it just makes it stand out more. Beautiful. I am pretty happy with the way my turtle looks. All right, kids. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the dark gray dots to our geometric shapes. So now that they're dry and ready, so let's go ahead. We are almost there, kids. Here we go. Adding little dots, little final touches to our art piece. There we go. Got one more dot, two. Oh, here's a little one. Did I miss any? Make sure. Oh. Make sure we didn't miss any. I think we're good. Okay. So now what we're going to do is add freckles to the neck. So see, our turtle is coming along beautifully. Freckles. And we're going to add freckles here, down here. All right. I think I want to add more. And I'm going to just dot it and add texture. All right. Now I'm going to look at my turtle, see if there's anything else I need to add. Now I want to add some red to the ridges, so I'm going to go ahead and get some blue and orange. This is where you look at your art piece and say, where else does it need a little bit more work? All right, so with my detail pen, I'm going to go over my ridges. Look at that. See certain parts that went onto the ridge of the turtle, you just paint over. All right. Pull down. Beautiful. Okay. Here we go. Beautiful. Now I want to perfect the outer edges, so I'm going to get some more orange, get some red, mix it in together, and then kind of twist my paintbrush, and then get the dip, and just go over it one last time. There we go. And take your time, go slow. Remember, you're only racing yourself, so take your time. It's like the story, The Tortoise and the Hare. The tortoise won because he was consistent and he took his time. He was well prepared. All right. Now what I want to do is I really want to make sure that my head is the way I want it. I'm going to do a little bit of outline, just a little outline, add a little gray. With my linear paintbrush. And just smooth out the top of his head. Perfect. I'm going to rinse that off. And then flatten when I go down with my paintbrush. Okay. Love it. All right, kids. Now, if you want to darken the top of your art piece with a little bit of blue, this would be the time to do it. So go ahead. You can add one last brush stroke. Dip your brush a little bit, just at the tip, And yes, it's a little bit yellowy water, but that's fine because this is a blue. Now I'm going to spread it. And there we go. Now I am done with my art piece. I'm going to take out the painter's tape and slowly pull down diagonally. You don't want to go fast because if you go fast, you'll rip your art paper. So pull down diagonally. See how there's like a triangle? And just slowly pull down. Whoops, traffic jam. Gotta pull up. Voila. Last piece. Diagonally down. Your summer sea turtle. All right, kids. I can't wait to see your art project.
Hold your head up high. Sometimes we get a second chance. I know I got mine.
All right, kids. Now that you've completed your art project, I can't wait to see your masterpiece. Now, go ahead and share your art piece on our social media, Facebook or Instagram, and tag us at Art Time with Flory. Now, before you do that, you have to ask your parents' permission. Now, for our next class, we are going to learn about the artist, Henry Matisse. We're also going to learn a little bit about the origins of acrylics, and our art project for our next class is called Beach View. Yay! All right, kids, make every day an art day. And you know what? I am so excited to teach you, and I can't wait to see you at our next class. Bye.